Hey guys, good morning. It's Friday and it means we have the workshop today. And the workshop today is a small flash. Our model will be Kimberly and well, it's going to be an interesting day. But first off, it's also a very cool day because our son Brian just passed his driver's exam. So I have to hide my car keys now. So that's, well, anyway, congratulations Brian. Really good day and let's show you guys what we do during the workshop. Enjoy today's episode of Behind the Closed Doors. Now, one of the things that we experience during the small flash workshops is that a lot of people bring their own gear. And normally that works pretty well, but what I found out is that a lot of people don't know how their gear works. And in all honesty, I know a lot about gear, but with small flash, there are so many variables and there are so many different options. Like, for example, you have Cactus, you have Photics, Yongyo, the system's own settings like the Canon RT system, I believe it's called Creative Lighting from Nikon. So there are many options. And during the workshop, what we normally did is actually we let people bring their own strobes and then set it up. But it took a lot of time, especially when you have people that don't know how their gear works. Now, this of course is a workshop for small flash, and I love to explain to people how the gear works, but if we have to find manuals online, that just takes a lot of time. And in all honesty, I always expect people when they come to a workshop, they at least know how to trigger their strobes. But in reality, a lot of people come to the workshop, small flash, and they have their small flash in the safe or wherever they store it and they never use it, which I think is a shame because, well, you bought it, so let's use it, right? So we try to find a solution for this, and of course I still will try to figure out how the system works for all the students, but to make the workshop a little bit more smooth and fast so we can get more sets in, we actually came up with another solution thanks to our friends from Photics, and I'm going to show you that now. Now, my own system is the Photics Odin 2, and this is the Odin 2, and it's especially for Sony. It's a great system. You have the display where you can see all your groups and settings. You can zoom, and it works really well. As strobes, we use the Mitros Plus from Photics. I really love these strobes because they actually make it possible to have the receiver inside. As you can see, there's no receiver connected at the moment, so the radio trigger is inside. And the cool thing about these is that when you go to the menu, let's turn it on and go to the menu, we can actually choose between Odin, Strato 2, optical and off. Now, this is incredibly handy for today because when I'm shooting, I'm going to use the Odin 2, and for the students, we actually got two Strato 2 receivers, and in this case the transmitters, sorry guys. So the Strato 2 transmitters, one for Canon and one for Nikon. Now, as soon as I'm done with the setup, and most of what we do during the workshop is manual strobes. So I start out by showing ETTL and then we switch over to manual. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put everything on manual and then give the students one for Canon and one for Nikon. And then they can trigger the strobes and I don't have to change the whole setup with flash benders and other accessories. So that should really speed up the workflow. And because the transmitters and receivers are actually inside the Photics strobes, it should be a real easy way to work. So we're going to test it out today for the first time and I'm sure it will work. Give you a very quick in-between tip. Now, when you mount your strobes on stands, what do you use? You normally use these little blocks where you actually tighten your strobe to the stand so they can't fall off. In reality, they still can fall off because if you make them too tight, you will actually destroy the foot. And if you make them too loose, they will actually fall off. And the biggest problem is when you use those booms under an angle, they actually fall off. And the other problem is when you look at the bottom of, for example, this Sony strobe, let's see if we can focus, there we go. You have a lot of small connectors and those connectors can actually bend very easily. Now, one of the tips, and we actually got this from the Photics guys themselves, is use these. And these are actually delivered with your strobes. The cool thing is it can never fall off because the front is actually blocked. And because it's delivered with your strobes, it also has the right connector for your locking system. And on the bottom, you see this little screw, so you can actually mount them on your boom stands. So these will save your strobes. Trust me, we've killed a few strobes in the past. So let's start with the workshop. Small flash. We're done with the workshop. Kimberly did awesome and we got some really interesting shots today, and we're now going to show you the results. And remember, this was the small flash workshop, as you could see in the video, of course. Okay, here are the results from today, and remember, the monitor and the camera don't work together very well. As you can see, it overblows a lot of the highlights, and if I move closer it adjusts. And we already tried exposure compensation, but somehow it just keeps overexposing. And this is also one of the problems you have a lot with small strobes when you use ETTL. It tries to make everything 18% gray. And with these kinds of shots, well, it's pretty high on the highlights here and the rest is very dark, so it always tries to compensate. So don't worry, it's not my photography, it's the monitor and camera combination. So this was the first setup. We used the flash bender, the Frank Doro flash bender, and a grid and strip light attachment. Love that combination, really cool to steer your light. And of course a black and white version, and shot from under a slightly more angle, changed my position, and one straight on for a little bit more flat light. Love her expression here, and also in black and white. The second set we try to do a little bit more like somebody's on the set ready for a photo shoot and just waiting, as you can see here. So this was actually not built. This is literally the stage how it looked in our studio. So we just put the model there, nothing was planned, it was just the way it was. And this is mostly to show the students that even when you see a total mess, you can still create a cool image. And of course from a higher angle. Now normally I always experiment with angles. Most of the times I love the lower angles, but in this case I really like the higher angle. And finally we did something with a ladder in our studio, and again we just used whatever there already was in the studio. And one flash bender from the front, again with the strip light and grid, and one from the back with just a Rogue Expo Imaging blue gel. I really like to play with those backlightings and of course with the gels. Okay, so those were the images for today. It's now approximately 6:41. Actually it's exactly 6:41. And it's time for me to go home, because tomorrow we have the workshop with Nadine, creativity and styling, and Sunday of course the Fodix effect. So I really could need a good evening relax time. So see you again tomorrow guys in another episode of Behind the Closed Doors.